everybody had a nice little break. I got to go check on my husband, so that was really great. So that was a good thing. So what I'm going to do is I have listed some of my character defects, and I kind of read them off to you at the beginning. And so the first one we're going to talk about is anger. And a deadly poison to sanity and serenity, a special punch to those who want to be God in their own lives. Its impact succeeds in obliterating reason and self-control. One can enjoy being a human hurricane while plunged into the depths of this emotional intoxicant. Sometimes the debris left after the storm is staggering. So I don't know if any of you have trouble with anger, but I am a kind of high-spirited person, and I've had a lot of trouble with anger. And in fact, my mother used to tell me I had a short fuse and things like that I would get angry really easily and end up saying things that would harm and hurt other people, which is true. So what do we do about this anger? What do I do? Because I can guarantee you, I feel powerless over this anger. And one of the things that happens is you can just feel anger starting to build in you. And these are the things, anger causes heart attacks. It causes cancer. Anger does terrible things to our body, let alone how it harms and hurts other people when our anger is thrown out at them. If just one whiff of anger sets up the compulsion to act on it, practice total abstinence. Restraint of pen and tongue. That's on 91 in the 12 and 12. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. That's on page 66 in the big book. Now, one of the things that happens is I'm powerless. That emotion, when it starts on me, I'm powerless. I have to find a way to grab a hold of it before it takes over. Because what's going to happen to me, it's going to take over. And I'm going to start saying things and doing things that I am ashamed of. Now, I'd like to tell you I never do that, but I do. And one of the things that I've really had to watch is in the last 5 years that I've been Dave's caregiver. It's very hard to be a caregiver because sometimes I know that Dave doesn't mean to, but he doesn't want to do what I tell him to do. He doesn't want to do that. And I'll get very angry with him. And then I'll feel so rotten and so bad, just like I used to feel when I got angry at my sons and I would scream at them and say things I didn't mean. And what I have to do is the book says we have to be without anger. I have to learn to live without anger. And anger is so destructive, not only to what it does to other people, but at what it does to my own body. It's very destructive. So how am I going to do this? How am I going to live without anger? So what I have to do, it doesn't mean that I stuff anger. That's going to cause a whole nother problem. But what I've got to do is I've got to learn to work these steps. I've got to learn to practice the 10th step every single day, all day. And when these feelings, and learn to see that feeling, pay attention. Oh my gosh, I'm getting angry. And learn to pay attention and start to step 10 it. Take a look at what I'm doing with my body. And step 10 is steps 4 through 9. What we're going to do is God is in charge. God is in charge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this anger. Why am I so angry? What am I doing? Then I'm going to talk to somebody about it. Call somebody immediately, right now, and make amends immediately. Don't let it go on and on and on, because the more I think about it and the bigger the resentment, because now if I keep thinking about it and thinking about it, we're going to go to another character defect we're going to talk about later, which is a resentment. And that's the one where I just keep refeeling it and refeeling it and refeeling it until now it has a hold of me, and I've got a resentment that's living in my head rent free. That person or situation is living in my head rent free, and I'm powerless. I'm becoming powerless. So I have to realize that I am powerless over my anger, and only God can take care of my anger. And in step 3, I got to ask him. I've got to ask him to remove it, to remove the anger. So this does not mean that we stuff anger. It means we step 10 anger, which is really 4 through 9. Remember, love and tolerance is our code. That's in step 10 of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Love and tolerance is our code. Now, somebody says something, I have to learn to be tolerant. Not everybody is going to do things my way. And boy, I'll tell you, if Al-Anon doesn't help you in that situation, because I guarantee you, people are not going to do it my way. I am powerless over other people, places, and things. I'm powerless over that. I'm powerless over their actions. They're going to behave like they're going to behave, and I am the one who has to learn to live with it. Should the compulsion get the upper hand, 3rd and 5th step in it, ask God to remove it and inventory it. Why am I angry about this all the time? Why am I doing this? What is going on? And take it to someone and talk about it. Strength to resist taking the first drink of anger comes from daily use of the 12 steps, slogans, and willingness to assume responsibility for one's own conduct. I have to be willing. And let me tell you, if you make enough amends, you're going to get sick of doing it. And hopefully that's what will happen. We'll just get sick of doing the same thing over and over again. So what I need to do is take responsibility for my own conduct. And one of the things we talk about a lot about our actions, but Bill uses the word conduct mostly in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, that I have to pay attention to my conduct and how I conduct myself in all my affairs. Intolerance, an emotional inebriate which fouls up 12-step work. It succeeds in blocking awareness of what has been shared with one in the program. It causes emotional biases and prejudice. And listen to this words of Bill on page 103 in the big book. A spirit of intolerance might repel alcoholics whose lives could have been saved had it not been for such stupidity. And what I want you to just think about is think about some AA meeting you've been to, and some drunk stumbles in, and he wants a cup of coffee, and he wants to talk, and you don't want him to talk, and we're all getting upset. We're all getting angry because a drunk came in to Alcoholics Anonymous and walked in and disturbed our meeting. And we are so intolerant that we might say, hey, can you be quiet? When what we should do instead is have a spirit of tolerance, that this is a very sick person. Get up. Somebody in your group, have that as a job in your group. Get up, get a cup of coffee. If you have another room at where your meeting meets, take him into another room. Take him outside. If you live in cold weather, take him on your car. Turn on the car and get it warmed up. Whatever it takes, pay attention. Let the hand of AA be there no matter what. For that, I am responsible. When anyone anywhere reaches out for help, and I cannot imagine what more is reaching out for help when a drunk walks into a meeting. Drunks don't come to AA by mistake. So when they come, let's let the hand of AA be there. And for that, I am responsible. Solution, daily doses of live and let live, plus an open mind. Seek to develop compassion, the highest form of spirituality. To be compassionate to someone who's there. The other thing is to have some compassion. When's the last time you went to a business meeting and just about became so intolerant your head was going to blow off? I've been there. How tough sometimes is it to accept the group conscience because they didn't do it the way I wanted them to do it. They didn't vote my way. I have the most amazing home group here in Jacksonville, and we have a speaker once a month. Now, I spent 27 years in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous in Southern California. And in Southern California, most of the meetings are speaker meetings. My home group in Southern California was Monday night Seal Beach speakers meeting. I love speakers meeting. Well, our group is a topic meeting, and we get to do 10 minutes. You get to talk, the leader gets to do about 10 minutes on the topic, and then we open it for sharing. So what happens is I would love to have 2 meetings a month, speaker meetings. Do you know that my group has had the audacity to vote that down every time I bring it up? They don't want that. I want it, but the majority doesn't want it. So what I have to do is I have to have a spirit of tolerance and accept that the group conscience has spoken. And I can't run off and be angry and resentful at my group. I must accept a spirit of tolerance and not be intolerant and angry at my group. Of what use would I be then? Of what use am I then? Okay, where am I? We can always, I just said, the highest form of spirituality. Begin with steps 6 and 7. Find out what my character defects are. And then step 10, take action. Continue to take personal inventory. And when I'm wrong, admit it at once. The prayer of St. Francis on page 99 and step 11 and the 12 and 12. We can always begin with with having some compassion for myself. Have compassion. Don't get angry with yourself. Try to get that spirit of tolerance that St. Francis has in the 11th step prayer in the 12 and 12. Be careful not to drift into remorse. Hang on just a second. Self-compassion means realizing that the meaning, quality, and intensity of one's own emotions. Pay attention to yourself. Pay attention to what's bubbling up in ourselves and try to take an action that's different. You know, like when they vote you down, try to act better than you feel and accept what's going down. The group conscious. Be careful not to use step 10 to beat yourself up with, because that doesn't do us any good. Step 11 in the big book says we must be careful not to drift into remorse or morbid reflection, for that would diminish our usefulness to others. Well, I just might as well leave. You know, they're just not doing it right. I might as well just go find another group. Just don't do that. Don't drift into that morbid reflection. Take a deep breath, invite God in, and ask to accept the situation and to be tolerant of the rest of the group. The emotional identification of self enables you to feel with others and understand that they have feelings too. And their feelings are, in my situation, they don't want another speaker meeting. So I need to swallow it, take a deep breath, and accept their decision. Learn to distinguish between a person and his behavior and detach from the problem, not the person. Do not throw away the person, just throw away the difference that you have with the person, not the whole person. Self-pity. Does anybody have any self-pity? I have to read you this. This is what I wrote many years ago when I first did this workshop. This is me. And this is how I behave. Now, I want you to know there are on occasions at 43 years of sobriety that I can find this very self-pity person. She will reappear from time to time. One sip of this fairly slow-acting emotional intoxicant can lead to a distorted perception. Giant mountains mushroom out of tiny little molehills. Problems are magnified and calamities loom on all sides. The drunken progresses to the crying stage, and the dialogue runs. Nobody loves me. Nobody appreciates me. Nobody cares. Nobody recognizes how hard I work in this group. Everybody is against me. I can't do anything right. I might as well be dead. Now, I know that's silly, but think about it. Has that ever been you? Have you ever taken self-pity to those places? Well, if you haven't, I have. And what I want to do is I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that person that is so consumed of myself that I think the world is out to get me just because they don't agree with me. I don't want to be that person. And I have been that person before. Set to a mournful tune, these lines are played over and over in a half-dark, gloomy, unswept mental hangout. At the center of self-pity is a half-grown kid having a slobbering, blubbering temper fit at God, self, circumstances, and people. As long as we keep the drunk tears flowing, he does not have to leave and go out into the light. Now, many of us experience self-pity in a much more minimum situation, and we deal with people who have self-pity. But what happens when we continue to think of self, 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 that is going to take us nowhere but into the darkest place that we could possibly want to go. Self-pity, and this is and Bill sees it. Self-pity is one of the most unhappy and consuming defects that we know. It is a bar to all spiritual progress and can cut off all effective communication with our fellows because of its inordinate demands for attention and sympathy. It is a maudlin form of martyrdom, which we can ill afford. None of us that are alcoholics and members of Al-Anon can afford this kind of self-pity. We can't afford it. It will take us to the depths of depression and suicide. It will take us all the way down. And it begins with one sniff of self-pity. It always starts with self-pity, feeling sorry for myself for some kind of situation that I am absolutely powerless over. Solution. Step 6, 7, and the 11th step prayer in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. We ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that we be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Avoid then the deliberate manufacture of misery. But if trouble comes, cheerfully capitalize it as an opportunity to demonstrate his omnipotence. Today, the things that have been character defects in me, like self-pity, today I'm grateful for those defects, because what happens for me is that self-pity I can recognize in somebody I'm working with, and I can say, that certainly sounds like self-pity to me, because that's how I act when I'm experiencing self-pity. Those situations help me identify with another alcoholic. Those are the things that help us be able to work with other people, because we have experienced those feelings, and we have experienced making fools out of ourselves because we're having some kind of self-pity. And then we become very embarrassed and humiliated, and then we get a little dose of the magic ingredient, which is so good for us. And that's a little humility, because of the way we have behaved. Okay, resentment. Now I'm going to spend a little time here on resentment. And An emotional intoxicant distilled from character defects, guaranteed to impede progress in steps 3 and 11. How are we going to turn this over to God? And how are we going to be able to have any kind of conscious contact with God if I am eaten up with resentment? Drinking of resentment poisons spiritual progress, often leads to emotional enslavement. We are tethered to the person or thing we resent. We're hooked to it. An effective way to stay drunk on resentment is to bar hop from anger to self-pity to intolerance to jealousy to fear, and then home to an unbelievable hangover and depression. Resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stems all forms of spiritual disease. For we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. Resentment is a spiritual illness. And that's in the big book on page 64. Harboring resentment is infinitely grave, dead. It will kill you. It will kill me. For then we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit. That's on page 3 in As-Built Season. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. But with the alcoholic, whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. There it is again, infinitely grave. That's on page 66 in the big book. Solution, the 4-step prayer. We ask God to help show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we cheerfully grant a sick friend. This is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God save me from being angry. Thy will be done. Practice steps 4 and 5. Find out, write it down, write inventory. Give that inventory, read it to someone else so we can see where our mistakes are. Be sure to put it down on paper and the 4th column so I can identify my mistake, not their mistake, because it says in the 10th step and the 12 and 12 that it doesn't matter if I have anything, if I am disturbed in any way, there's something wrong with me. And it's not the other person, it's me. Step 10 and 11, helping others can get us out of ourselves long enough for God to get in and remove the resentment. Now, I want to talk about something personal. And this has happened in the last 2 years. 2 years ago, I experienced what I thought was an enormous betrayal by someone, and that someone took away from me something that I loved with all my heart and soul. I had worked on it. I had given it everything I have. It meant so much to me. I loved it so much. And that person took it away from me. And I was devastated. I mean, absolutely devastated. My heart was broken. And I was so angry and I was so resentful at this person. And I felt like, how could you do that to me? I just couldn't see. I just couldn't. And what I would do is I couldn't help but talk about it. And of course, every time I talked about it, I just kept refeeling it and refeeling it. And I was doing inventory and inventory and inventory. And I have an amazing sponsor today. And I've had her for 5 years. And her name is Rena Kay. And she is absolutely has what I want. She has an amazing AA program. She's drop dead gorgeous. And I so respect her in every way. And what I kept giving her, and she just kept saying, and I knew that I was going to have to find a way to forgive. I had to find a way to forgive. And I would feel like I had forgiven. I feel like I had forgiven that person. And I'm Christian, so I constantly kept visualizing Christ on the cross saying, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And I just kept asking and asking and praying that I would get over this resentment. And I just want to tell you that this just happened. This resentment is over 2 years old. And I just got resolution this past March. And I'll tell you how it happened. I ended up coming to Southern California so I could see my son. And I saw my son, and I just saw how different he was. And my oldest son, who just got sober, and I saw how different he was, and what a different person he was, and how he had always forgiven me for what I've done. And so had my youngest son. They had just forgiven me so much, forgiven me all the abuse, all the neglect, all the things that I have done to my sons. They had forgiven me. And in this past March, I was just sitting and I was doing my daily readings, and I read a couple of things. And I'm a really Emmett Fox girl. And I say that, and I say Emmett Fox because Emmett Fox was such a contributor to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I am definitely an Emmett Fox girl. And I knew in Emmett Fox, there was about 3 or 4 pages on forgiveness as he's writing about the Lord's Prayer. And he's talking about forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespassed against us. That he's got about 3 or 4 pages there on forgiveness. And I just so what I did that day is I picked up my Emmett Fox book and I read those pages. And I read those pages. And then when I got done, I just sat back and I just shut my eyes. And I just breathed deep, and I just started asking God for the gift of forgiveness. And I just sat there for a while, and then all of a sudden, something just washed over me. It was just like I felt God's mercy. It just washed over me. And the thought came to me of all the things that my sons have forgiven me. And I did 1,000, not 10, 1,000 times worse to my sons than this person had done to me. And I was able to let it go. And I've been so grateful that I'm free of that resentment. I wish it would have happened right away, but it didn't. I had to continue to keep on writing, to keep on praying, to keep on working on that resentment. And I'm so grateful I'm free of it today. And I will tell you, in all of my life, I have not had a resentment as bad as that. None that I had coming into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous were as bad as a resentment I had against this person, or had felt as violated as I felt by that person. So today, I am free. I am free. I have practiced 4 and 5. I have practiced 11. And I've put it down on paper. And I did the 4th column. And then I did step 10 and 11. And I did step 12. And I continued to tell people. I continued to help people. And I continued to be authentic. And this resentment, because I wanted to be free. And I knew that I could not have any kind of thinking that I was better than, and just because I had 43 years of sobriety, that I wouldn't have resentments. I had to be authentic and let people know, yes, I am struggling too. I have to work these steps just as much and just as vigorous as any newcomer does. Jealousy. When I wrote this and when I started doing this workshop, this was in 1990. And my life in 1990 was very different when it comes to jealousy and such as that. My life was very different back then. And I love Teddy is on this Zoom because I'm going to use something that we said a long time ago. And we were at a conference out in the desert. And we were sitting there and all these cute little girls that had all kind of magnificent figures and everything were walking across the stage. And we were just saying, look at them. And as we were doing that the night before, we had been teasing because now we were starting to age. We were in our 50s and mid 50s, and we were starting to age. And I said, yeah, as they were walking across the stage, I said, yeah, Dave and I were looking in the mirror at each other last night, and we looked like 2 chickens with these big old fat stomachs and these skinny little legs. And Teddy said to me, well, there is some justice in all of this because they too someday will be a chicken. And we absolutely died laughing. But these are the things. So jealousy is a little bit different today than when it used to be. But I tell you, I thought I had the most amazing, the most gorgeous husband in all of the world. And anybody who knows my husband personally knows that Dave loves women. And he always loved the women I sponsored. He liked to have lunch with them. He liked to talk to them. He was always appropriate, never inappropriate. But Dave is just that kind of guy. He just really likes women better than he likes men. And I can tell you that used to be really tough. Now, let me give you a little clue. For a lot of years now, and especially now, that doesn't bother me at all. Dave is, I'm 80 and Dave's 84, and probably hadn't bothered me since we were in our early 70s or late 60s. But I can tell you, I used to get that little grip of jealousy and think that, they were better than me and they're cuter than me. And if I see, they got a better figure than me, and always have comparing myself to somebody that I thought looked, acted, and had more than me. That jealousy. Well, let's see what our literature says about jealousy. Jealousy, keep always in sight that we are dealing with the most terrible human emotion, jealousy. the most terrible human emotion is jealousy. Jealousy, as the 12 and 12 talks about, taken to extreme. Like some of these character defects can be taken to extreme. Jealousy taken to extreme, a person can murder. Taking these character defects to extreme can be deadly. That's on page 82 in the big book. The greatest enemies of us alcoholics are resentment, jealousy, envy, frustration, and fear. And that's on page 145 in the big book. A powerful concoction of resentment, fear, self-pity, low self-esteem, and insecurity. Drinking freely and often from jealousy allows one to lose self-control. The mental blend diminishes peace of mind. We can take these thoughts and keep them in our head, and we are absolutely in agony. Dangerously threatens our faith and trust in self and others. Jealousy brought into the program hurts the group, unity, and fellowship. And I can tell you, have you ever watched people be jealous of somebody in the group and start gossiping? From jealousy comes gossip and intolerance and all the things that bring so much sickness to ourselves, to our relationship, and certainly to our precious groups and Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon. Jealousy is a character defect that we must be rid of. We cannot have any tolerance of jealousy. It is a soul eater. It is back where it says, and that I just read, keep always in sight that we are dealing with the most terrible human emotion, jealousy. So if this is something that is bothering you today, go to your knees, go to the steps, go to the inventory, start taking this character defect and absolutely praying to have it removed, and do everything that we can. Inventory, be working with your sponsor. This character defect is deadly. Dishonesty and self-deception. One of the things that I know we talk about that we have to be, this is an honest program. We have to practice honesty, because I can get so dishonest that I am in self-deception. I am believing my own lies. I have to watch that the dishonesty, emotional intoxicants, which like champagne seem harmless. We'll do a little dishonesty, a little gossip, a little self-deception, and we'll share that with somebody else. And we don't think anything about it. We think that it's, we're just sharing. But if we're sharing any kind of dishonesty or gossip or self-deception and harming other people, we are harming the rooms of Al-Anon and AA. Please, let's watch the dishonesty. Their side effects make us feel sure we are not the maker of our own mischief. We believe it. We start to believe our own dishonesty. And then we don't even know what we believe or what's true anymore. So please try the very best we can to stay honest. And one of the things I try to do is if I start saying something, I try to stop and say, I don't know why I'm saying that. I don't know why I'm saying that, because that's not the truth. I just embellish the truth. My kids I used to say I exaggerate a lot. And finally, one of my sons said, you're only, and exaggeration, that's just another form of lying. You start exaggerating, and what I'm actually doing is I'm lying. I'm being dishonest. I'm exaggerating the truth. I'm either exaggerating that it's really good, or I'm exaggerating that it's really bad. Whatever happens is I'm not being honest. And I need to be honest, because if I am dishonest, it is going to lead to anger. And that dishonesty is going to lead to resentment. And that resentment is going to lead to absolutely self-harm. I could drink over things like this. I hurt other people if I am not honest. Dishonesty hurts other people, because if we tell a lie about somebody, even though it's not true, that person has heard it, and they will forever think of that person with that lie I just told. It's so destructive. It's so destructive, and has no room, has no place in the rooms of these precious, precious programs that God has given us. Ask Him in your morning meditation to please let me be free of dishonesty and self-delusion. Help me to be honest and not dishonest. Criticism. Oh my goodness, criticism. A social cocktail made with equal parts of rumor, gossip, and a secret glee over another's misfortune. It feels so good to smugly say, poor thing. The accompanying hors d'oeuvres of self-righteousness is too good to resist. Such behavior hurts and humiliates others, and can, especially in the case of newcomers, drive them away. They have come to Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon in good faith and can be driven away believing these programs are not so special after all. One of the things that I'd like to say is I try to take a line my husband always says. And he says, I don't want to be a critic. I want to be a coach. I'm telling you, there is no such thing as constructive criticism. Criticism hurts, and absolutely hurts. When we criticize someone, it hurts. If we can find a way to say something honestly without criticizing another person, who am I to tell you what's wrong with you? Who am I to do that? I am not the monitor of your behavior and your actions. That is your job, not mine. Solution. We need to read the directions on our own prescription. Doesn't it say we should pay attention to our own needs to recovery? The ODAT says on page 92, the contented, well-adjusted person has no need to look for flaws in others. We don't need to find out what's wrong with you. That's not my business. If you ask me, do I see something you need to improve on? And especially if I'm your sponsor, I will tell it to you as honestly as I can. But if you didn't ask for my opinion, I don't need to give it. It's not my business. Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon are fellowships of equals. Neither brains, money, looks, prestige, education, cleverness, nor the lack of these kept alcoholism and its effects away from us. Daily cultivate love that looks for nothing in return, and meditate on our own good fortune to enjoy the free gift of God's grace. Always remember, there is no such thing as constructive criticism. It is only something that harms and hurts. Fear. What kind of time are we running into? Okay. What do you want to do, Yvonne? How do you want to take? Do you want to take?
Holly, you muted yourself. Yes, there you are.
I have about. I have a good half hour left of the stuff I have here, and I don't know if you want to take a break and then me deliver that and then do that and then have questions and answers.
Well, let's take a short break and maybe we can open it for some questions and answers for what you already have covered and then
perfect.
Cover the rest. Would that be good?
Okay, perfect.
Let's take a 10-minute break and come back 10 past